So, Mr. Farley, it is such a humbling and honored experience to have the opportunity to speak with you. I had the pleasure of hearing you at our awards gala, and so I am also just going to ask you a few questions and have you to share with us, and just to get to know a little more about who you are. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Question number one. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in education, and specifically with career and technical education.
Sure. It started when my father had terminal cancer, and I was taking care of him along with my mother. And my sister was working as a teacher at a camp with people with disabilities. I was playing varsity football, and every day when she got home, my sophomore year, I teased her incessantly about what she was doing and name calling and all the other things that an immature 16-year-old boy does. That summer, my father passed, and my sister bet me $1 that I couldn't make it a day working at that summer camp. So I went in and made it the whole day, and it wasn't hard for me. It was kind of easy. It was kind of fun, to be honest. And at the end of the day, somebody came up and asked me if I would come back the next day. And I said, no, thank you. They sent somebody else up, same thing. They sent a third person up. I said, no. They sent a pretty girl up. She asked me. I said, yes, I'll be back tomorrow. And I never missed a day for the next 7 years. Wound up working all the way up to being a teacher. When I went to college, I thought I would pick special education as my major because it was easy and I didn't know what else I wanted to do. But I don't think I ever fully thought I would do anything else. So I got into special education, really focused on working with medically fragile children. That led to my master's degree, went on and got my doctorate at East Tennessee State University, where I really started to get into the behavioral side of things. Wound up working in a psychology department in Indiana, where they were closing it down. The Department of Justice was closing it down because of how the people that lived there were being treated. At that time, I met a clinical director that worked with out-of-school youth who lived with mental illness. So I came to Dayton, Ohio, and started a program that had never been done before that served 13 different counties or school districts with young people that had a mental illness. And from there, after about 7 years, I kind of felt that it was time to grow. So I became superintendent of 3 dropout recovery charter high schools in Dayton, and they were the first in the state to focus on career tech. And so I knew a lot about the healthcare profession because of my background with medically fragile youth. Started to learn construction, then manufacturing, and from there got into Youth Build, so a Department of Labor program. Been running that here in Dayton for 12 years. And about 8 years ago, Oakmont Education found me and asked if I would come and be their vice president of career tech. And so now that's what I do. We have nearly 5,000 dropout youth across the entire state of Ohio with a heavy emphasis on career tech. And we were just invited by Governor Kim Reynolds to go put our school in Iowa. So we're going to open the first dropout recovery option in Iowa in August. So that's kind of what brought me through to career tech. So probably more than you wanted, but I think the backstory is interesting to say the least.
Well, Mr. Farley, I truly agree with you. And I have to go back and say you are truly a champion for career and technical education and very deserving of this award. I'm just listening to your story and how you began and how you came about doing this is just fascinating. And I think that our children are really blessed to have you in the capacities in which you have served and which you continue to serve. And so thank you so much. Um, I'm going to move into our second question, and it says, you're very passionate about career and technical education from listening to how you shared about me, how you came into it, right? And I have to tell you, that's a really funny story. She must have been a really pretty girl that she got you in there.
He was a redhead, and that's all you need to say less.
So, as I was saying, you're very passionate about career and technical education. Where does that passion come from, and why is CTE important to you?
Hmm. So when my father died, it was, as you can imagine, pretty devastating. And the idea of therapy, and it just wasn't a part of what happened a lot back then. And so um, I can remember the details of how I was told, and um, uh, as I was being sent out to school, and I was kind of numb for the entire morning. And finally, my coach saw me, knew something was wrong, sent me to a counselor. So I told my counselor what had happened. He said, "Let me call your mom." I said, "Please don't call my mom. That just don't do that. She's got her issues and she's trying to cope. Please don't do it." Well, I got sent home, rode the bus home through Baltimore City, got home. As soon as I got there, um, my mom was standing in the doorway. And so I knew that she had been told. And at that moment, I realized that that trust had been violated. And so I know what it's like to hurt. You know, the old expression, hurt people, hurt people. I did until I was able to get some help. So part of me is I always feel like I have to pay it forward, um, and be able to hold that trust with youth that need it, and opportunity youth certainly need it. Our paths are very similar, our journeys, even though when they look at me, there's like, oh, no way they're going to connect with some 6'5", 300-pound white man with gray hair who's a doctor. And then I tell them about my journey. And then all of a sudden, kind of like Maya Angelou, we're more alike than we are different. And so you can build that bond. In special ed, we've always said we should work our way out of a job. I think in career tech, you really can work your way out of a position when you are given the opportunity to serve young people, that you can be a steward of their life, help them alleviate that hurt, break generational poverty, and like I said, pay it forward. And I can't think of anything better than to commit your life to making a difference in the alleviating pain.
Mr. Farley, it's just so interesting that you say that, because that's some of what I was talking about today in my classroom with my students, right? Building trust, building relationships, helping young people to know that there is someone in their corner. And so it is definitely evident that you are in the corner and where you're supposed to be working with young people, helping them to see and know what their voice is and the power of what lies in them. And so that's such a wonderful thing that you're doing. And so it segues us right into our next question. It says, you've been a supporter of career and technical education for many years. Can you tell us about some of the activities or initiatives that you are particularly proud of, and those that have excited you the most?
I think there's two components to our model, and I kind of developed the model, so I'm kind of partial to it anyhow. But there's two components that I really like. Um, One is taking career tech and the design of career tech, and I know this might not be acceptable, but taking it away from teachers and going to the businesses and helping them create what a program should include to make young people prepared to meet their expectations of entry-level employees. The Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind. And I don't think we listen enough to what the people we're preparing them for are expecting. And if we don't get their input, then we think we're doing it, but then gaps are created between the skill sets that our youth have and what the employer wants. And that compromises and jeopardizes placement. And these babies have been beat down a lot in their life, sometimes failing grade after grade, being asked to leave high school after high school. When they get into a job and they experience the problems with that gap that we didn't overcome, then a lot of them go back to that learned helplessness. You know, I screwed up fourth grade. I screwed up ninth grade. Now I screwed this up. I'll never, and that's just not being a good steward of people. And along with working with those businesses is the workforce experience. And our youth have to be out there in the field doing that work-based learning. I once knew a friend that said, you can't learn how to swim by standing on the side of a pool. And I can get our healthcare students through all the different certifications they need. But in a classroom that doesn't have the sights and the sounds and the smells and the speed, sometimes it's required in a healthcare setting, then we're not preparing them. Construction, the ability to work on a residential construction site when it's 34 degrees in the morning and it's 58 in the afternoon, and they require two completely different levels of dress. That is part of what career tech is supposed to be, really knowing and really exploring. And if you find that you don't like it, fine. That's a great lesson to learn in high school and not when you get trapped into it where you need that money to survive. The other element that we have is for soft skills, which are often so difficult to teach because nobody's really defined those container words of build rapport and improve communication. We've worked on a resiliency program that has specific teachable elements to it that look at resiliency, look at the skills that are in it, like active listening, incorporating diverse perspectives, learning from experience, things that you actually can have classroom activities that you can do individually, that you can do as a group, that you can share back and forth. And we use an instrument from IntelliSpark for a pre and a post test to notice the difference and to qualify and quantify the difference in resiliency. The numbers that we've got are staggering, especially when you look at the domain of well-being that has 5 subdomains: agitation, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and sleep disorders. We have anywhere between 38 to 44% increase in resiliency in that area. Overall, it's double digit. So what fascinates me is we're now at the stage where we're looking at the growth in resiliency and then looking at our placement and retention. Because by the way, we not only place our students in post-secondary placements, we follow them for 1 full year. And if they need help with utility assistance or food insecurity, we provide that. And so now we're kind of looking at, does resiliency improve retention? You know, college-bound youth have a lot of resources on a campus they can go to. Now, when you have families that deal with survival, you have children that deal with survival. And when you get placed into the workforce, if you're still are living in a survival mode, no one has your back with the resources, again, you're going to go back to the ways that aren't really necessarily in line with growing. And so those are, I guess, 2 and 3 if you look at the placement support. But those are things that I think make a difference. Our placement rate for all of our grads is 86%. That was nearly 1,000 students last year in our network of schools. But when you look at just career tech, our placement shoots up to 92%.
Wow.
You can't get behind that. I don't know what you can get
Wow.
behind.
Yes, that is so amazing. And I just want to kind of go back, but I tell you, you must have been in my classroom today, Dr. Farley, because everything that you're talking about is exactly what we did today. But I want to go back because you said maybe this is not, the right thing to say, but I think what you said earlier was actually backwards design and learning, right? Because
Right.
you're saying that to find out what it is that industry needs, allow them to put together some thought processes about how we can then incorporate into our classroom, which then leads to a collaboration between our industry and our teachers, right? And so I think that that is like the great dynamic of what it is that we do. And so, I mean, I just congratulate you all on what you're doing and how you're just making things happen, which segues us into our next question. And that is, what is one of the most significant challenges facing career and technical education today? And how can professionals in industry, education, and policy come together to address it and try to make a difference?
We still struggle with the mindset that if you go into a skilled trade program, that you're the loser, that you're the dumb kid, that you're the one that can't hang with college. All those of us in the field know that that is just not true, but there are still the district schools, a lot of the pundits. There's so many people that equate a college education to success, and it's not. And we have all the research, but I think that's the greatest threat. Until we can start rejoicing in everybody realizing their dream for their future that pays a sustainable living wage, we're not working and reaching 100% of our youth. Because really, even if you go to college, there should be some trade or some career at the end of it. I think that's the biggest one. I think there's still some inequity in policy and funding where enough money doesn't follow the student to find the career tech options that they're interested in. And of course, not any school can offer everything. But if there's a nearby school that offers a culinary program and you don't have culinary, why can't you go? That's just silly to me. But that mindset, that fixed mindset instead of a growth mindset, my belief is that that's what hamstrings us.
No, and I think you're exactly right, and you hit it right on the head and the nail of what it is that how we need to see things a little differently and how we need to operate and move differently. So, and here is our last and final question. So, looking forward towards career and technical education's future, what changes in education, practice, or policy do you anticipate or hope to see forthcoming?
I can tell you in Ohio that we were 6 for 6 in the budget last year with the changes that we wanted to make. And I don't think anybody else was that successful. So very pleased with what we did policy-wise here in Ohio. We still have a couple more things that we want to change. For me, I'm excited about the resiliency. Really is the one that just has me all going because I want to see the impact on retention. And then I also want to go ahead and teach our employers, those frontline people, how to connect. So if I can digress for 2 seconds, I'll share this with you. The young people that we worked with, when we asked them and coded everything out, what's important to you? They said fun. When we went to the businesses and they found out that the kids said fun, they were all up in arms. Like, that's not why you get a job, and that's why we can't. And these kids, blah, blah, blah. When we started to get the answers from the frontline supervisors and we coded those, their number one thing was a work-life balance. Now they're talking about the exact same thing, but they're in their silos of specifically how they call that. When we were able to bring them together and let them see that the number one quality that they all wanted was the exact same thing, it changed the dynamic of the relationship between the frontline supervisors and our graduates. Now that needs to be replicated. We need to figure out a way to get more businesses and frontline supervisors to get that training, kind of a mentorship in the workplace program. But I'm also excited about the possibilities of virtual reality, where you can't afford everything and you can't go everywhere, but VR should be able to bridge that gap. And then ultimately, I just want to create as many career tech pathways, build as many nets as I can so that we can catch more and more young people um, who aspire for more, who don't feel like they have to be pigeonholed because you only offer 2 or 3 things. And then a key element of that is entrepreneurship. Junior Achievement did a study last year. 66% of teenagers don't want to work for a traditional company. And when you see our kids and the side hustles they have with shoes and nails and t-shirts and hats, we need to teach them entrepreneurship so that they can grow their business. But entrepreneurship is still seen as that's not a real career. But I beg to differ. I think it is. So those are the things that I'm excited about. And more kids, better lives. I feel like when I'm done at the end of the day, if I've impacted more kids, I'll be happy. It reminds me of the starfish story where the grandpa throws it back, and I made a difference with that one. And I just want more of that ones than probably most people. And I'm type A, so I just keep fighting to do more every day.
Well, it is certainly evident why you were selected as the champion for career and technical education. Just listening to you and hearing your passion and, just your determination to provide opportunities for young people to be successful. And, oftentimes we say, come out of that tunnel, right? And to see that, you see the whole picture, the big picture of, what it will be and can be is just such an amazing thing. And I am so humbled and honored that I had the opportunity to further have conversation with you and to interview this evening. So again, congratulations on being named our champion for career and technical education. Just wish you so many more years of success and look forward to seeing you again somewhere and ACT Visions, conference or somewhere doing something still great. So thank you so much, Dr. Farley, for being here with us this evening.
Thank you. I'm touched. I appreciate it.
Yes, 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 yes. So we bid you a great evening and hope all is well with your family and have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.